Okay, so I have started recording the video, so we can proceed. First of all, I would like to say thank you for finding time to join in into this online class, and I believe we are going to have a wonderful session this evening as we are now going to deep into now practical things. So all along, we've been discussing we've been discussing the concepts that underpins this course, which is called monitoring and evaluation. We've discussed in details what monitoring and evaluation is, and we've also discussed in details what monitoring on its own entails and what evaluation entails. We have learned this far that monitoring and evaluation happens on a daily basis. We need to be recording whatever we are doing as a department. We need to have a record of what we did yesterday as a project. We need to have everything that we are doing as a policy. If we are implementing a policy, we have to document all those things. And that's what monitoring entails. You ask yourself, are we receiving the resources on time? If we are receiving the resources on time, are we channeling those resources to the planned activities? Are we doing the activities on time? Remember, everything will be contained in an M&E plan. So as we begin with the implementation, we are going to be following whatever we had put in the plan. Then evaluation now comes in. We want to evaluate what we've done in the past. We want to know, where are we now? Are we making progress towards achieving our goal? If we are not making progress, we need to ask ourselves, where are we not doing it properly? If we know where the lacunas are, if we know where the problems are, we are able to make amendments such that as we go into the next quarter, for instance, we should not repeat the same mistakes that we made in the previous quarter. We have to see that in quarter 2, the performance or the way we are moving towards achieving our objectives and ultimately the goal, we are moving towards that. But if you are not moving towards that, evaluation should be able to speak to all of us. So we have laid the foundation of this course, which is monitoring and evaluation. And I do believe that at this point in time, because all of you in this class are working, and I do believe that at least, though you might not have found time to go through the slides that I shared just this morning, but I do believe that when we talk about something like a goal, we should be able at least to relate with what we do in our daily activities at work or from whatever we are doing. When we say a target, we should be able to come up with something that we can say, indeed, this is a target. When we say, let's set up what could be our expectations in this project, what could be the purpose of this project, what could be the objectives of this project, I do believe that we are going to have a wonderful session. So today, I want to introduce you to something that we call a monitoring and evaluation framework. So the framework is what anchors monitoring and evaluation. Without you planning premised on the framework that are within the monitoring and evaluation, then it means your project cannot be monitored. Your project cannot be evaluated. You can only be able to monitor what you've planned to be doing. You record them, then you can now evaluate what you've done, and then you do the comparison with what you had put in your plan. Remember yesterday when we dissected the definition of evaluation, we picked out four things from the definition. But before I can give you an overview of what a definition of evaluation is there anyone from this class who can give it a try? Is there anyone who can give it a try? Is there someone who can say something at all? Actually, we talked about the comparison, we talked about the systematic. Is there anyone who can give it a try on what we discussed yesterday in class, and for those that attended the online class yesterday? If you want to speak, you can just unmute your mic, then I'll be able to hear you, and everyone in this class will be able to hear you. Can I have someone from what we discussed yesterday on a definition of evaluation? We talked about 4 things from the definition. Can I have someone to give it a try to say at least something before we can now move on? Hello? Can you hear me, class? Okay, thank you. So should I move on or should I wait for someone to give it a try? Yeah, so yesterday we defined what evaluation is. Then we went on to now narrow the definition to 4 important components of what evaluation entails. So my question is that, do I have anyone who can give it a try by breaking down the definition of evaluation? If you can remember one, well and good, you can just tell us that one point, is no problem. Okay, that's wonderful. You are very right, madam. We talked about systematic assessment, where we said that as we intend to do the evaluation, we must follow the social research procedures. If we don't do that, then it means what we are doing is not evaluation. Then it must be systematic. It should be a systematic process. Now, thank you so much, madam, for that excellent answer. Or you want to add on? Okay, okay. Then the second point, operational stroke outcome. So it means as an organization we can decide, are we going to focus on the process? Are we going to evaluate how the process was in terms of implementation? Or do we want to look at the end benefits to the beneficiaries? So we can decide as an organization. Then the third point, standard stroke comparison. So in whatever we've been doing or in whatever we've done this far, evaluation will come in to assess what we've done, then do a comparison to what we had put in plan. For instance, we could have put that we want to reduce HIV prevalence to 14% after 10 years. But along the process here, we are going to put in indicators. Do we, as HIV prevalence from 14.2, let's say in the first year, HIV prevalence should reduce to 10%. Those would be our indicators. So as we do the midterm evaluation, for instance, we should be able now to compare what we have now with what we had put in the plan. Then from there, we can say that the program has been a success or the program has failed. And that's the importance of evaluation. When we know that the program hasn't been working well, we can make amendments so that we don't make another mistake again tomorrow. Then the last point, contribution to the improvement of the program, and that's the major function of evaluation. We want to identify where the errors are coming from. We want to know where the problems are coming from. Then as we make amendments, then you are very sure that the program is going to succeed. So that's the major importance of evaluation. Contribution to the betterment of the program. We want to make our program work better as designed. Because along the way, remember that a lot of things can happen. There could be maybe the political structure, things along the implementation of the programs are likely to change. So evaluation, he's going to speak to you that something has changed. This is a problem. Could you please amend this program if you want your project to work better? So that's the importance of evaluation. So tonight I'm going to introduce you to this thing called M&E Framework. The objectives of the lessons are that at least the student should be able to identify and differentiate between the 3 different types of frameworks. We've got the conceptual frameworks, we've got the strategic frameworks, we've got the logical frameworks, and in brackets there are logic models there. Furthermore, the expectation is that the student should be able to expound more on the frameworks and how these frameworks are applied in monitoring and evaluation as well as project planning. Then the last bullet here is talking about the last bullet here is talking about we should be able now to design the same project M&E framework using any of the above frameworks. So just like I said in class that I prefer picking things from the practical point of view rather than just putting it in a theory way. I've got examples of the conceptual frameworks, I've got examples of the strategic framework, I've got examples of the logical model, but in this class, we are going to draw from your varsity experience and then draw up a framework from scratch. And contribution. The presentation outline therefore follows this. What is the difference between we need to know what an M&E plan is, which we discussed yesterday, that an M&E plan is where you are going to document everything starting from the mission of that organization, the vision, the overview or rather the background of that organization. You are going to talk about your objectives, the expectation, you are going to talk about how you are going to be monitoring your activities, who is going to be funding your monitoring activities. You are going to talk about developing the M&E system, which we discussed yesterday, and we'll move on and do the M&E plan at some point in time. Why should you have an M&E framework? It's a question that is supposed to be answered, and we are going to answer this as we move on with this class. Introduction to various frameworks. So we are going to look at the conceptual framework. I'm sure I talked about these frameworks. So a framework is just simply a map, or rather a skeleton that shows what you intend to do, that shows a logical connection from point A to point B, and how point B is connected to point C, and how point C is connected to point D, and how point D is now connected to our overall goal, what we want to achieve at the end of the day. So the framework should be able to show us that linear association of how things are moving from one point to another point, from that point to the other point, and from that other point, finally, it leads us to the overall goal. So that's how the framework, that's the importance of the framework. It's a map. So an M&E framework is the best description which may be part of an M&E plan. So it means your frameworks, any of the frameworks that you are going to develop within the organization is supposed to be contained in the M&E plan. So everything will be documented in your monitoring and evaluation plan of the project's programs goals. So it means in your framework, you have to tell us what your goals are. You need to state what your objectives are. You need to tell us the outcomes. We are doing the planning, so we need to assume that if we do this activity, we are likely to get this. Then you need also to tell us what your outputs are. You need to tell us what your processes are. So the word processes here is equivalent to activities. So when we talk of the process in monitoring and evaluation, then it means we are talking about activities. Then you're also going to tell us the inputs. What do you need for you to initiate that project, for you to initiate that program, for you to initiate the policy? You need to tell us how all these things are connected, starting from the inputs, how the inputs are leading to the activities, and how the activities are going to lead to the outputs, and how the outputs are going to result into the outcomes, and how the outcomes are going to result into the impact, and the impact is more like a goal, what we intend to achieve in a long run. So a framework should be able to clarify that linear relationship between things starting from the inputs all the way up to the impact. And these frameworks are very fundamental. Monitoring and evaluation without utilizing these frameworks, then it means there's no monitoring and evaluation whatsoever. The importance of having these frameworks, which I've just actually talked about, but I'm just going to read. They create a clear linkage between the program or the project goals and the objectives. We must connect the two, the objectives and the goals. So the objective is simply the statements of what we intend to achieve at a specific level. And consolidating all these objectives all together, they should lead us to a goal. In other words, a goal are more like objectives at a general level, what we intend to achieve at a general level. Then from there, we want to narrow it down. They clarify the relationship between the program project inputs, which I've already talked about. They provide a platform for the implementation of the M&E plan. Remember, in your framework, you are going to show your activities. You are going to tell us how much is needed. So it means once you have everything documented, it will be very easy for you just to be following through the same plan and do the activities. If you had planned that on the 4th September 2019 you are going to do a peaceful demonstration, then you should do it according to your plan. You should not divert from your plan. Immediately you divert from your plan, then it means you are likely not to succeed as a project. And it's more likely that you are going to channel your resources to other things that you did not put in your plan. So it is always important that we follow the plan as we are doing the implementation. Types of the M&E frameworks, we've already talked about this. So today we are going to focus on this thing called conceptual frameworks. So in everything, the conceptual framework is supposed to always appear. Like, you cannot afford not to have a conceptual framework. You are supposed to have a conceptual framework at any point. If you are initiating a new project, you are planning for the M&E, you must have the conceptual framework. Then here, as you can see on my screen, I've got the results framework, which is also called a strategic framework. I've also got the logical framework. For these other frameworks left here, you can decide to pick one and document it in your M&E plan. The only thing which is mandatory to be included in your M&E plan is the conceptual framework. The conceptual framework is always supposed to be there. Like, you can't afford not to have it. It's supposed to be there, always. Then for the remaining three here, you can pick one. I'll give an example. Like the USAID. USAID, they use the result framework here, and we are going to discuss what a result framework is practically. Then other institutions, they go for what is called the logical frameworks or a log frame 4x4 matrix. So you can decide also to go for that one. Then the other people, they go for the logic models, which falls in the family of the log frame. The logic models here, no wonder I'd put these models in brackets because they also fall under the log frame here. Hello class, can you hear me? Could you please confirm you are hearing me? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So at any point when you want to ask a question, please feel free, ask a question so that we can address that question as a group. You don't know, maybe there could be someone who is in Mufulila, someone who is in Zimbabwe, they would benefit from your question. So when you are not clear, please ask. If you've got a contribution, please, your contribution is welcome. At any point, you can just unmute your mic, then speak, then we'll be able to hear you. So should I proceed? Okay, thank you. So I was saying that you cannot afford not to have a conceptual framework. It's mandatory that you include a conceptual framework in your document. Then for the other three, you can decide to pick one. But there are some organizations already, as I was talking about the USAID, them they use the result framework. So it means when they employ you as a project manager, their expectation is that you develop the result. Okay, there's someone wants to join. Let me just give them access. Mr. Simon Botta, you are welcome. Feel free to contribute at any point. Okay, thank you. So Other institutions like PEPFAR, they use the logical framework, which is a log frame. So even you, if you are starting a new organization, or maybe it could be your own business, but you want to implement the monitoring and evaluation, you can decide to go for one. But for the conceptual framework, is mandatory. Now, I have a question. What do we think the conceptual framework is? I do believe that a conceptual framework should be familiar for all of us here, provided we've done some research before, because the conceptual framework are very common in research. So what do we think the conceptual framework is? Hello class, I'm talking to you. What do we think a conceptual framework is? Okay. Not wonderful. So the conceptual framework builds the background of what we are supposed to do. Excellent. That's a wonderful answer, sir. Is there anyone who can add on? The framework. That's a brilliant answer, madam. Thank you so much. Anyone? No. Wonderful. No, thank you so much. Let me pick up one more contribution. One more contribution from you, class. Yes, I can hear you. Sure, no problem. Yes, there's a difference. So a conceptual framework is a diagram, but a concept note may not necessarily be a diagram, and a concept note will include a lot of things. I would relate a concept note to an M&E plan, for instance, because the content of an M&E plan, though the M&E plan is detailed, and there are other things that cannot appear in the concept note. So in the concept note, that's why you're going to give an overview of that organization, whatever. And the concept note, in essence, is where you want to apply for funds, for instance. So you are going to give us your mission, the goals, what you intend to do, then you give us the budget breakdown of everything. So that's a concept note. But a conceptual framework is just a simple diagram which we are going to look at. Thank you. So like I said, that the conceptual frameworks are those that we know from research. Remember, in research, you do the first thing that you do is a chapter 1, you are going to introduce your subject of discussion, then you are going to clearly state what a problem is, then you are going to write your goal, which is in research we call it a general objective. Then from that general objective, you are going now to come up with specific objectives. Then once you come up with specific objectives, depending on the nature of the study, you can go now to state the hypothesis. If you want to test the existence of the relationship between two or more variables. Then once you do that, now you move on to your literature review. You are going to review what others have done. The reason why that is important is just to help you better understand the problem that you are trying to address. Then you do what is called a theoretical framework. A theoretical framework is where you pick the theoretical framework is where you pick theories that can help you explain that particular problem. And as I defined a theory in class, is simply the composition of ideas which purports to explain the existence of a particular social phenomenon, a particular social event. Then once you do that, now you go to your conceptual framework. You would want to show a causal link between the factors that you feel are leading to the problem you show a causal link between the factors that you can assume that these factors are contributing to the problem. So you need now to show them logically how they are connected, how they are moving from point A to point B, from point B to point C, and how those factors are ultimately leading to the problem. That's how the conceptual framework is supposed to be designed. So as you can see from my PowerPoint here, we are saying that a conceptual framework is a diagram which shows where the program fits into a wider context. It clarifies assumptions about causal relationship in a program. It shows how program components will operate to influence outcomes. Will guide indicator identification because we are going to determine how. Okay, let me just quickly allow someone to join in. There's someone. Okay, Mr. Gordon Case, you are welcome. Feel free to contribute to ask a question at any point. So we move on. So it will show how program components will operate to influence outcomes. We are going to determine how things will move from point A to point B, and from point B to point C, and point C to the overall destination or to the final destination. It will guide us in indicator identification. It will guide the impact analysis, the causal pathways, how are the factors logically connected. That's what the conceptual framework entails. Before I can move on to the next slide, do I have any questions that I can address? Do I have any questions that I can address? Should I proceed? Okay, sure, sir. Okay. So the mister here is asking, is there a distinction between the conceptual framework and the theoretical frameworks? So there is no distinction whatsoever. So in research, some people, they write theoretical frameworks to refer to the theories that they are using in that study. But in essence, it's not supposed to be a theoretical framework. It's just supposed to be theory review. Once you specify to say theory review, then if I start reading, or if someone starts reading a document, it means that what I should find under that section is how you are discussing how that particular theory that you've picked is explaining your problem. For instance, there is a cost-benefit analysis model which you can use. There is the theory of planned behavior and reasoned action. There are so many theories that that exist. So I can just say theoretical review. Once you put a framework, then we must see something coming in a diagrammatic format. So there is no distinction, sir. The conceptual framework is the same as the theoretical framework. And that's why there is a word at the end, framework. It means there must be something designed in a diagrammatic format. Have I answered your question, sir? Thank you. Now I can move on. So here I've got an example of what a framework is supposed to be designed, of what a conceptual framework is supposed to be designed. We are going to discuss this, then I'll invite suggestions so that we can develop our own conceptual framework. So when designing the conceptual framework, as you can see that my arrows are well connected. My arrows are pointing to one thing. In fact, here, this was, okay, sure. Are you able to see this arrow here? This was a mistake. This arrow wasn't supposed to be pointing down here. As you can see, this arrow, are you able to see where my cursor is? This arrow here was a mistake because it's showing that it's pointing down and it's pointing on top. So, From the definition of the concept, okay, I can hear you, sir. I can hear you, madam. Someone wants to speak? Okay, I'll proceed. So we've discussed to say that a conceptual framework, it shows the causal linkage between factors and how those factors are ultimately leading to the problem. That's how a conceptual framework is. So it means it begins from somewhere, then it results into something, then that something results into something, and that something eventually results into the problem that you are trying to address as a project. But now something unique that you should take note of is that when developing a conceptual framework, the arrows should start moving from the bottom, going up, or the arrows can be moving from the left side going to the right side. Then it means what you are building is a conceptual framework. You will never find a conceptual framework where the arrows are moving from the right side going to the left side. Then that will be called something else. In as much as it can be designed properly, we can admire that diagram, it can never be a conceptual framework. As far as I know, the standard is that the arrows should start from the bottom. If you decided to build your conceptual framework in that manner, going up, or your arrows can be coming from your left side going to your right side. So I've got an example here. This example is talking about causes of malnutrition in society. As far as I know, if that question was to come to you, I'm sure people who have ideas, they'll have something to say. Malnutrition is where we are talking about deficiency of nutrients, which can ultimately lead to stunted growth, where someone is not growing properly because they don't have sufficient nutrients in the body, especially in infants and children. So here, this is a problem. We know that a problem here is malnutrition, but we want to determine what are the factors leading to malnutrition. What are the causes of this thing called malnutrition? So if we had such a scenario, we can build a conceptual framework. Are we together, class? So the way this conceptual framework is designed is that, as you can look at, as you can see from my screen here, from my right bottom here, I've got something labeled as basic causes at society level. Then from the society level, it goes to underlying causes at household stroke family level. Then now it goes to immediate causes. Then eventually it leads to outcomes. When you look at these 4 points, actually these 4 points, they are addressing the definition of what a conceptual framework is. However, it doesn't always mean that when you start developing your conceptual framework, you have to show that the basic causes at society level, the underlying causes at household family level, immediate causes level, outcomes. It doesn't always supposed to be like that. You can decide not to include this, but you just design it like I started from the bottom going up. What's key is how well are the factors connected from the starting point to the next point until it reaches to the problem. So this framework is framed in such a way that we are starting the analysis at society level. We are starting at a community level, for instance. We are starting at a national level. We would want to ask ourselves, what are the factors leading to malnutrition at a national level? So as you can see from my first bullet here, where my cursor is, so the assumption are that potential resources, then a full colon there. So it means environmental is a contributing factor to malnutrition. If we've got something which is not going well in terms of the environment, how well we are keeping the environment, how well those people in agriculture are using the environment. Do we have sufficient environment for us to produce good agricultural products? Then we are assuming that technology can also be a factor that can lead to malnutrition. We are also saying that even people themselves, they can also lead to malnutrition. But as you can see, all these factors are coming at a general level, and at this point in time, you cannot tell exactly how environment can lead to malnutrition. But we know that the environment is important because that's where the agricultural crops. Sorry, yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. So at this point in time, we are still discussing these factors at a general level. As you can see, there is this arrow pointing up, this arrow, the first arrow here. So what this arrow entails is that from the environment, technology, and people can result in what we are seeing in this second circle here. The factors from the first circle can result in the second circle here. So we are assuming that quantity and the quality of actual resources. Then we are talking about human, we are talking about economic and organizational, we are talking about the way they are controlled. If I was to ask a question, quantity and quality of actual resources, from the first circle here, oh, my case has disappeared. From the first circle here, from the points in the first circle, where or to which point can you relate quantity and the quality of actual resources? To which point from the first circle can you relate the quantity and the quality of actual resources? Hello class, I'm listening from you now. Where can you relate the quantity and the quality of actual resources? As you can see, all these factors are still being discussed at the society level. We are just assuming because that's how planning starts. It starts from here. We are assuming that the environment, technology, and people can result into quantity and quality of actual resources. The quantity here, it could be in terms of agricultural products, the quality as well. We might have abundance of the agricultural products, but we also have to ask ourselves, what's the quality of the same agricultural products? So we are looking at human beings. We have to look at what are the skills of those people. Are they very educated? Definitely, for someone who is very educated, then it means they have got income. They can buy something good for their children. But if someone is not educated, it's highly likely that they can be living in absolute poverty. So we need also to look at the quality of the human beings that we have. We need also to look at the economy itself speaks volume. If the economy is bad, like for instance now we are talking about having a deficit of maize production on the market, hence the pricing for meal has gone up. So it means that those people that do not have much resources, they do not have the purchasing power to buy the bag of meal at 150 kwacha. So the expectation is that there will be starvation from certain households. We are just hearing that no, in Gwembe there is hunger now because of the economic factors. We are talking about how are the institutions organized in Zambia. From the agriculture point of view, how are we organized to ensure that we've got abundance of the products? From the policy aspect, how well are we organized to ensure that there is peace in Zambia? We are talking about and the way they are controlled. How do we control the same resources? We hear that some resources, some bag of meal are being smuggled into DRC, going to Malawi. Those are the things that we hear. So we are assuming that the way the environment is, the technology at that particular point in time, and the people that we have can result into can determine the quantity and quality of actual resources, would determine the type of human being that we have, would determine the type of the economy, would determine the organizational structures, is going to determine also how well we control these agricultural products. Now from this point, we move on now, we narrow it down, we start now discussing at household level. We want now to narrow it down to household level. We started with discussing at a national level that these are factors that can determine malnutrition at national level. But again, there are other factors that comes at household level. It could be at personal level. So we want to now to discuss the factors that can lead to malnutrition at household level. But remember, we define the conceptual framework as something that is connected from the beginning point to the end point. So the same factors that are precipitating or prevailing at a society level are supposed to result into something that is going to affect someone at household level or family level. So as you can see, as you can see here, the assumption at the point of planning, we are saying that all these factors that we have here can lead to what you are seeing in this box. So you're saying that there could be poor water stroke sanitation. We are talking about how much resources do we have. If we've got a lot of resources, if we don't have enough, it will determine the quality of water and the sanitation aspect. So it also showing that the factors that are here can also result into inadequate. Sorry, let me go back there. It's also showing that my case has disappeared. Okay, it's also showing that the factors we have here at society level can also result into inadequate health services. So it doesn't mean that the conceptual framework is supposed to follow one path. As you can see, from this point, from the beginning we had one path here. No wonder I've got a single arrow here. But from here, as you can see, I've now got three ways. This one resulting into this, then this arrow pointing to this, and this arrow also pointing to this. So from the same factor that we have here, we can see that these factors can lead to inadequate maternal and child care practices. When we look at the human beings here, the more people are educated, the expectation is that these people, they will know how to take care of their children. The less people are educated, then we know that they will not be taking care of their children properly. And this can be seen from the village. We know that even a baby who is aged 6 months, someone can make a porridge make porridge for them from cassava. They can give them solid foods, for example. But mothers have got much to say about this. So mothers, you can help us. You can say something about this. Tell us something. Hello? Can you hear me, class? Yes, you can contribute something. Okay, so now I can move on now. So I've got another path here. So we are assuming at the point of planning that the factors that we have here can result into insufficient access to food. If we don't have much of the food, just like it is happening right now in Zambia, we don't have much. So it means there will be insufficient access to food. So now, if for example again, from the first circle here, if I know that these factors that I have, they can lead directly all the way to insufficient food, then I can draw the arrow that can move from this point all the way moving going to that point, because the factors that I have here, they are directly resulting into insufficient access to food. But with the factors that I have, I can see that these factors are first resulting into the factors here. Then these factors are leading to insufficient access to food. At the same point, these factors can lead to inadequate maternal and child care practices. Then at the same point, the factors can lead to poor water and sanitation, as well as inadequate health services. Then from there, we move on. As you can see my cursor from the right middle side here, we are assuming that poor water, sanitation, and inadequate health services can lead to diseases. Then in the middle here, we are assuming that inadequate maternal and child care practices can lead to diseases. We know that if there is no proper care to a child, then highly likely that that baby will be infected. If there is poor water and sanitation and inadequate health services, then we know that diseases will be a common feature. Then at the same point, inadequate maternal and child health, as you can see, can also lead to inadequate dietary intake. The care that we are offering to our children who determine the inadequate dietary intake. If we are not giving them so much, then it means there will be inadequacy. If we are giving them much, then it's going to be adequacy. So here it is inadequate because our problem here is talking about child malnutrition, death, and disability. So definitely it can't be adequate, because adequacy of dietary intake cannot result into this. So that's why the word there is inadequate. So as you can see, that inadequate maternal and child care practices is leading to diseases, and at the same point is also contributing to inadequate dietary intake. So it's up to you to relate that actually this factor can lead to this, and at the same point this factor can lead to this, or it can also further lead to this. Then we can show the arrows. The arrows are there to show us that the problem is starting from here, then the problem is leading to this, then this is going to result into this. Then to my far middle left here, I can see that insufficient access to food can also lead to inadequate dietary intake. Class, is this point justifiable, which is insufficient access to food can lead to inadequate dietary intake? Is this point relating to the inadequate dietary intake? Can I have someone to say yes or no? It is, right? Because whenever there is insufficient access to food, it means it's not everyone is going to manage to have access to the most nutritious food. So if they are not having access to nutritious food, then definitely the dietary intake will be very, very inadequate. It will not be sufficient. Hence, more contribution. How is the poor water sanitation linked to disease? Is this point true? It is, right. So then from there, okay, yes, ex- okay. You've put it so well. We can use the 2017. Who remember? Oh, is there anyone who can remember what happened in Lusaka in 2017, starting in November? Exactly. We are being told that there was outbreak of cholera, and that outbreak of cholera was associated with poor water and sanitation, right? Exactly. Wonderful, wonderful. Mm. Cleanliness. Okay. Okay. So, have you heard? She's brought up one point that we can include in the conceptual framework. That's why even in class yesterday, I was like, you cannot develop a conceptual framework alone. You need to sit as a group. You need to sit, maybe it could be the group of M&E specialists. There are also people who are from the social science, people from the medical fields, people from the city council, for instance, because those are going to be your stakeholders, people from the Ministry of Commerce, people from the Ministry of Labor. You are going to sit down, then you are going to develop a conceptual framework. If it's something that is more to do with the internal contribution, then it will mean that we are going to sit as an organization and discuss and develop a conceptual framework. So I'll show you how to develop a conceptual framework. So this is how the conceptual framework is supposed to be developed. Then we move on. We've discussed now that these factors at household level can now result into inadequate dietary intake. Then it can also lead to diseases. Then I can see that there's a arrow pointing from diseases leading to inadequate dietary intake. Is this true? Diseases can lead to inadequate dietary intake. Is it true? It is, right? Then is it also true? Okay. It's just not there, right? Wonderful, wonderful. You've put it so well. You've put it so well. Then how can inadequate dietary intake also lead to diseases? Exactly, exactly. You've put it so well. Then there, have we seen that there is an arrow pointing from the middle side of this diagram all the way to the malnutrition side? I'm trying to connect my computer to the power source, but I don't know why. It's not charging, unfortunately. And my computer is about to die. What's happening to my power source here? Okay. Like my power source is on, everything is intact. The other things are working, but okay, let me try to check here. I know where the problem is. There we go now. We move on now. So have you seen that inadequate dietary intake can now ultimately lead to child malnutrition, death, and disability? Then here from my right side here, we can see that disease can also eventually result into child malnutrition, death, and disability. Then here we see there's a point here in the middle, inadequate maternal and child care practices. This we are also assuming that this also can directly result into child malnutrition, death, and disability. So this is how the conceptual framework is supposed to be built. It will help you identify what are the factors leading to the problem that we are trying to discuss. It will help us, like we discussed, it will help us during the indicator identification. So here, like already I can see that there is poor sanitation. Then sanitation can be one of my indicators. I can now start, as I start the program or the project, there could be a group of people just focused on addressing the issues to do with poor water and sanitation. So sanitation can be one of my indicator. Then I can say health, quality health services provided, it can be one of an indicator. Then I can move in the middle there where I can say inadequate maternal and child care practices. It means child care practices can be one of the indicator that I can keep on tracking to see whether or not we are making progress. Then there is also insufficient access to food, so it means the indicator could be access to sufficient food. It could be one of the indicator that we can be tracking on a daily basis. Then at the end, we are going to conduct an evaluation to see or to determine whether or not we are making progress in achieving that indicator that will ultimately result into our goal, and our goal will be reducing malnutrition in society. At this point, I'll pause and invite questions on the conceptual framework. We should ask as many questions as possible, because I said the conceptual framework is mandatory. You cannot choose not to do it. You just have to do it, because it will help you in your indicator development. It will also show you how points are connected, moving from one point to another point, from another point to another point, so that even as we start designing what we intended to do, like the activities here, we know what the problem is exactly in specific. If we know that there's poor sanitation, then it means we have to come up with an activity which is going to be addressing poor water. If we know that there is inadequate child care practices, then it means we have to come up with activities. Maybe it could be sensitization, where we go into the community telling them how important it is for them to offer the best care to their children. Then we also have insufficient access to food. They need to help me come up with an activity. What should I do for me to address the problem of insufficient food in society? Maybe it could be, you say you are going to be distributing some food, you are going to be giving loans to local farmers so that you can empower them, you are going to buy machines for them, you are going to decide as a project. So that's the importance of developing the conceptual framework. It will now start speaking to you, and as you can see, the points here are well connected from the society level, all the way moving to the narrow side until eventually it leads to the actual problem. So now I'll pause and I invite questions for the next 5 minutes before we can move on. I'm inviting questions, class. Have we all understood what a conceptual framework is? And do we all know how to develop a conceptual framework? Okay, sure. That's wonderful. So now, the best way to develop the conceptual framework is this. Let's use an example of political violence. Let's say our problem is political violence in Lusaka. So we want to design our conceptual framework. What do? We need to first start by listing down all the factors that we feel are leading to political violence. So let's use that as an example. I'll give you an example. Cadalism can lead to political violence. What else can lead to political violence? So let me quickly open my Word document here. So you'll be telling me so that I start documenting. So we are looking at political violence. That's a problem. For instance, political violence. This is our problem. Then we want to come up with the conceptual framework. Sure, I write done. So here, have you seen? Hello? So as you can see here, I've written down here which is political violence. I want to identify the factors that can lead to political violence. So political violence here is a problem, so I will put it somewhere there. I want to develop my conceptual framework. Then I can go down here. I'll start listing the factors that I feel can lead to political violence. I talked about cadreism. Can I have contributions from you, class? Cadreism. What else? Misunderstandings that can lead to conflicts. What else? Unemployment. There's poverty here. There is tribalism here. What? Poor communication. What else? Sorry? Or interest in power pursuit. Okay. Interest in power pursuit. What else? Frustrations. Greed. What else? So have you seen that? Oh yes, you can move on, sir. Sorry, sir. State capture. Okay. Okay. Corruption. Okay. Okay. So we can use these factors. Have you seen that we can list as many factors as possible? So if you want, you can even go up to 90. Then from there, you start narrowing those factors. Because you might find, for instance, that, I'm just giving an example where you find that actually unemployment means the same as poverty, for instance, and it means you can collapse that and remain with 1 point here. So if earlier on you had about 90, you can now narrow them down. You are going to group those that are, you can group some basis on similarities and you just make them as one. So now, the basic conceptual framework that you can ever do is where you get your problem and put your problem in the middle like this. Then here you say, okay, here I'm going to put political factors. Are you able to see what I'm doing? There you are. Okay, there is, okay. There you say you're going to put your political factors there. Let me see if I can copy. Okay, let me just type inside. Let's say I've got political factors here. Then now I can list down the political factors that I have. Let's say there is corruption. If corruption falls under political factor, then I can say the second one here is going to be, okay, I can increase the size of this cell here. The second one is going to be tribalism, for instance. If tribalism falls under political structure, then from there you can go and insert, then you go on shapes, then you pick this arrow, then you just draw this arrow, it goes there. Are you able to see what I'm doing? So have you seen that I've started building my conceptual framework? Then I can go there, I'll go on insert, then I'll go on shapes, then I'll say design, then put my thing there, then put, let's say, economic factors, then I'll go there, shapes, I'll get that arrow, then I'll point to where my problem is. So doing this is a basic conceptual framework, and it's a simplest conceptual framework, and I wouldn't want you to go for this basic conceptual framework. I would want you to go for the one which will now show how things are moving through the process from point B to point A. An example will be the conceptual framework that we have in this slide. So it means even from what we have here, we can start listing them. For instance, which one can come first? We can even also include education, for instance, right? So let's assume education, poverty, and unemployment are connected. Which one will come earlier than the other here? Between unemployment, poverty, and education, which one is supposed to come early? I have a question for you, class. Which one can come early? We've got education here, then unemployment and poverty. I know that these three variables are well connected, but I know that one thing will come early, then another thing will follow in the middle, then another thing will come, and thereafter it will lead to political violence. So which one will come early among these three variables? Education, poverty, and unemployment. Can I have someone to... So education will come early, right? Then, madam, you said education will lead to what? Which lead to poverty. Then poverty now eventually lead to what? Yes. So it will lead to frustration and lead to capitalism and then lead to political violence, right? And again, at the same point, at poverty level can also dive direct into political violence. Are we together? Just like it is from this example. Have you seen here that inadequate maternal and child care practices? From this, it is leading directly all the way to child malnutrition, death, and disability. But at the same point, the same factor is also leading to diseases, is also leading to inadequate dietary intake. So in the same manner, we've said that education can lead to unemployment will lead to poverty, then poverty can lead to frustrations, then frustration can lead to capitalism, and capitalism will eventually result into political violence. Or education can lead to poverty, then poverty can lead to unemployment, then to poverty, then direct into political violence. Yes, madam, you wanted to say something. You can proceed. Exactly. So it means there can be that it can happen vice versa. Exactly. Unemployment there can also lead to would determine education. If someone doesn't have income, then the expectation or is highly likely that they may not be educated because they do not have income. So it means if we decided to go this way, where we want first to classify things at society level, then unemployment and education all those factors can come out at society level. But again, unemployment can also come at an individual level. There can be unemployment at a national level, then unemployment can also happen at household or family level. So it means, for that example, unemployment can come twice, at societal level as well as at individual level. As I said, It's not always that you are going to be showing that no causes at the society level, immediate causes, underlying causes. No, you can design your own conceptual framework. And then there are times where you are going to adapt the conceptual framework. For instance, if you are dealing with nutrition, for instance, there is a conceptual framework on nutrition. So instead of you developing your own, if it's something that is urgent, you can just decide to adapt what has already been developed. You can just adapt, but provided in your document you are going to show adapted from this and this and this to avoid the issue of plagiarism as well, more especially if it's academic reports. But if it's not an academic report, you are also have to show that you adapted this from somewhere. Are we together? Okay, should we move on? Okay, so we are still discussing how to develop the conceptual frameworks. So let's say there is corruption here, there is greediness here, there is poor communication, there is tribalism. Let's try to link these factors. Who can give it a try? Yes, class, I'm waiting for you. Can give it a try. Hello, class. I'm waiting. I'm listening. I'm finishing. I'm just doing this my fun designing as I'm waiting for someone to contribute. Oh, okay. Let me quickly do that. Okay, so I'll be removing these factors since I have these factors here. Let me remove these factors. But it's also possible that poverty can also lead to greediness. So we can always show the arrows that this can also result into this. Then we said this one can result into poverty. Okay, so let me put something for poverty here as well. Then let me type poverty here. Then we are saying that okay. Then I can just squeeze in this something a little bit up. I can just increase the font size of this a little bit. Then like this. So it's always up to me to design what I want. So I'll pick this arrow there. Then I'll draw a line from there to that side. Then I want just to increase the thickness of this. Then I'll go there, put the arrow there. Then just increase its thickness. Then I'll pick this arrow and put that arrow there. Then there. Have you seen we are developing our conceptual framework? So you're saying that education can lead to unemployment. Unemployment can lead to poverty. Poverty can lead to political violence. But at the same time, we did agree that poverty can lead to frustrations. Are we together? Frustrations, right? Okay. So let me now, when I delete the factors, these factors will disappear. Okay, let me just say. So it means I can also put something here. I can also put something here. Then here, that's why I'm going to put here, there is frustrations. Then let's say I've got greediness. Then let's say misunderstandings comes in at a family level, right? Because Papa doesn't want to bring food there. So Papa will be causing misunderstandings with my mom here. So we say misunderstandings. So have you seen so here? I'm going to put in an arrow here that poverty can lead to these factors. If also unemployment, we know that unemployment can also lead to frustrations, right? So it means we can also put we are not exactly. You exactly. Yes, you can have a number of allos. That's why now this is happening at a planning. So it means we are doing the planning. Planning starts like this. We are trying to show how things are connected from one point to another point and from that other point to another point. So that as we begin developing the activities, we know what to tackle, we know what to do. If we know that unemployment is leading to poverty, is leading to political violence, what can we do for us to address political violence? We have to resolve the issue of unemployment. Are we together? If we know that frustrations are leading to political violence, we are going to ask ourselves, what's leading to frustrations among our people? Unemployment. Then we know that we have to resolve the issue of unemployment. So it means we are 100% sure that immediately we resolve the issue of unemployment, then we should be able to see political violence also reducing. Are we together? So that's the whole essence of developing the conceptual framework. It's not just developing and dump the diagram. So you came up with another wonderful terminology where you referred to an independent variable and a dependent variable. So in this case, our dependent variable is political violence. It is dependent variable because it changes because there are other external factors trying to influence political violence, and hence dependent. It means it relies on something else. Then independent is that something which changes on its own. It doesn't wait for other external factors to make it change. It will change on its own and then make an influence in the dependent variable. So in this case, all these factors that we have in here, education, unemployment, frustrations, and poverty, all these are independent variable which political violence relies on. Political violence depends on all these factors that we've listed here, and hence these factors are going to be our independent variables. Are we together, class? Okay, so there's a madam who said that first finish doing your designing so that we see how we can connect things now. Okay, so so we can now say that this can also lead to political violence. So we can put an arrow which is going to show that this is leading to political violence. Are we together, class? So have you seen how we started developing political. Yes. Okay. Where can lead to frustration, right? Mm. You, you are right, madam. You are right. So let me just include something. Let's say institutional capacity. So institutional capacity, in this case, which institutions are we talking about? Hmm? We are talking about TCZ, we are talking about the police, right? And the courts, yes. So institutional capacity, you can then say there is poor communication. Okay, let's qualify poor communication from this side. So let's say we are going to have somewhere we are going to have poor communication from the institutions which we have. Let's say poor communication. Let's say because our institutions are not good enough, we say that there is corruption, and those that are corrupted, they are not being taken to court. Sometimes if you even take them to court, they will be acquitted even when the public can see. The police, yes. The constitution, like the mister said there, actually we've got a lot of uneducated youths who doesn't even understand this. The constitution, even the educated ones, right? Okay. Mm. Like an example of the bill number 10, we are just hearing it. We haven't taken time to read about it, right? Exactly. So you haven't taken time to read and understand what's there. So all those factors. So here, okay, to frustrations, right? Exactly. So you are very right, madam. So let me just, for the purpose of doing the explanation, let's say this now is resulting into this. Are we together? Just for the sake of now doing the explanation. Have you seen the way I've connected things? So I'm assuming that institutional capacity lead to poor communication and whatever, then this is also going to affect this and this and that. Then at the same point, we can also have an arrow which is showing that actually this can directly result into political violence. So have you seen how we've developed the conceptual framework from scratch? So what's key is that as we go for a workshop, we need to sit down, we start now discussing, how can tribalism lead to political violence? How can nepotism lead to political violence? How can poverty result into xenophobic attacks? We need to sit down and reason together as a group. And that's why it's also important for us to read a little bit on what has been done sometimes back so that we deepen our understanding of what the problem is. So basis of what we've done here, do I have any question that I can address on the importance of the conceptual framework, how the conceptual framework is supposed to be developed? Okay, okay. So you're saying it has become easier to you, right? Exactly. 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 Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Then can I have someone to address the importance? Why should we develop this complicated thing? Why can't we just move on? What's the importance of this? Yes. So we are showing, yes, I can. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. So you've uh, you've exhausted everything that I wanted to say. So as you can see, the problem here is political violence. So if I was to set a goal for the project, how can I frame my goal? If the problem is political violence, what could be the focus of the project? Political violence. So it could be reduce political violence to a certain percentage, or maybe we can say reduce political violence to 0%, right? Exactly. But as you can see here that there are factors connected. We've got institutional capacity. So it means as we begin to do, then it means this can't be a project. Remember, a project will maybe just consist of few things. But here as you can see that we can have a project addressing the institutional capacity, because we know that addressing institutional capacity is something which is coming at a higher level. It's not something that you can do in 2 days. Then there's the education side here also. So it means you can have a project looking at institutional capacity alone. You can also have a project looking at education alone. You can also have a a project focusing on unemployment. So this is going to help us to determine whether what you want to do is going to be a program. Remember what I said, that a project is a subset of a program. A program is going to consist a number of projects within the program itself. So that's the importance of developing this. Let's say we want to reduce political violence, and it means our target will be capacity, to be facilitation of improving the institutional capacity in dealing with political violence. Maybe it could be the police themselves are not doing enough. Maybe it could be the courts, they're not doing enough. We know that the ECZ, they are not giving us the clear guidelines which are supposed to be followed. Hence, due to misunderstandings, people are engaging in political violence. So we have to address all those factors. Then when we come to unemployment, we know what we are supposed to do as a project, that we need to start creating something, start giving loans to youths. We empower them so that they find something to do rather than just sitting in the CBD, just making noise there. So the conceptual framework is able to speak to us and inform us on what we are supposed to do. And from the factors that we've determined as leading to political violence, we should be able to come up with the objectives. For instance, it will be to reduce unemployment. That can be an objective. We know that when we reduce unemployment, then we will see that poverty is also going to reduce and the political violence will reduce. On the other hand, frustration will reduce, greediness will also reduce, because people now have got abundance. Misunderstanding with dad and mom will reduce at home, because dad is now able to bring food on the table. So those could be our activities. Then at the same point, we are going to frame the objectives from the factors that we've listed in the conceptual framework. Even as we are setting the expectations, we can set the expectations from here. At least after 1 year, we must be able to say that unemployment level should reduce from 14% to 20%. I mean, from 14% to 7%. Then in the final year, we're saying that at least at the end of this program, unemployment should remain at 2% only. So Eva addressed all the things that are supposed to be addressed under the conceptual framework. I feel I've addressed all those factors. And I can now fly to Evan. Yes. Okay. So there's a classwork here, which is let's build a conceptual framework from scratch. Have we achieved that? Wonderful. So let's say this is what we had planned, that we have to build a conceptual framework from scratch. So we have now to review what we've done. We have to evaluate and assess. If we've built it, then we must surely say that actually we built a conceptual framework from scratch. So that summarizes the class on how to develop the conceptual framework. Any questions? If there are no questions, I'd like to say thank you so much for sparing your own precious time to join in and attend this class. I do believe that the presentation was good from all of us because everyone has been contributing all along. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow in class, not online, but at UNZA. For those that are doing online, you can also join in at exactly 18:30 tomorrow. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Yes, I can hear you. Okay. Sure. I'll share it right away. Okay. Okay, sure. You shared it to me, the email? Yeah, you can do it direct. I can see it. This is the arakasoko40@gmail. So you can do it privately to my WhatsApp. Thank you so much. Have a blessed night. Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you.